Hey there guys, and welcome back to the channel. We're going to be diving into this latest news here regarding Rebel Moon Part 2. So this article comes to us from Comic Flick News. Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver, lands lowest Rotten Tomatoes score yet. So obviously we got Part 1 that came out on Netflix back in December of last year. That movie came out, had a lot of mixed reactions. There was a lot of people that thought the movie was lacking any kind of philosophical depth to it. And a lot of people weren't happy with that first part. And we was hoping that the second part would come out and be received a little bit better. But it looks like this movie is doing just as bad, if not worse, than Part 1 was. And the reactions aren't good, but we're going to jump into some reviews and see what some of the critics on Rotten Tomatoes are saying about it, and see what the overall score is as well on Rotten Tomatoes at the moment. So, Zack Snyder's latest movie hit the review aggregator with a rotten 13% score. Wow, 13%! That's insane. I would never have guessed that this movie would land 13%. So, seemingly confirming the sequel's reception. However, it's still early days, especially with the majority of critics seemingly not receiving screeners in advance. Yeah, so obviously within the next, few days, next week or so, that score of 13% could fluctuate up or down as more critics, put their reviews online on Rotten Tomatoes. But in order to get a fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes, you have to be at 60% or higher. To get from 13% up to 60 and above, I doubt it's going to happen for this movie because, yeah, that's just a long jump to go. And it doesn't seem that people are reviewing this movie in a good light. It seems that it's got even more issues than the first part did. But let's keep reading. There's parts of a review here, and then we'll go down and check out some other Rotten Tomatoes reviews as well. So, Snyder's sci-fi epic stumbles towards the finish line with an underwhelming Part 2 that feels more like a Part 1.5, reads Total Film review. Empire Online, meanwhile, concludes with marginally better than the Part 1, but still weird, messy, and humorless sci-fi that gives you little reason to cheer the potential continuation of this Snyderverse. So, yeah, it seems like, again, there's just people that are just not happy with it. These two reviews here. Let me just move my camera that way ever so slightly. So it seems here we have Total Film and Empire. They're both saying that, it's lacking, that, there's just not a lot here, that it's potentially got all the same issues as Part 1 did, which is not a good thing to hear. So, it turns out that the trades were unimpressed, with The Hollywood Reporter mocking a sequence in which the characters harvest wheat for what seems longer than a Swedish art film. A sequence in which characters harvest wheat for what seems longer than a Swedish art film. I remember reading about a review for Part 1 of Rebel Moon, and there's a scene where some woman towards the beginning of the film, she's harvesting wheat in the field, and the camera pans into the wheat, and it's like, that Zack Snyder slow motion, and they just do a slow motion kind of 20 seconds just on the wheat, kind of like falling to the ground, and it's like, what is this obsession with filming these up close objects in slow motion that have no relevance to anything? And it seems like the same thing has happened here. A sequence in which characters harvest wheat for what seems longer than a Swedish art film. So it seems like there's a lot of more of this kind of Zack slow motion on these kind of pointless things. And they kind of like that art style, Zack Snyder. So, So we've got a screenshot here of 4 different reviews from top critics regarding Rebel Moon Part 2. So let's just have a quick read and see what these critics had to say. So from Linda Marek, from Hey You Guys, while an improvement on Part 1, a feisty cast and generally impressive action scenes don't make up for the emotional void at the heart of the film. Snyder's fans will eat it up. Everyone else will be left wanting something more substantial. Yeah, I know what they mean by that. So, going into a Zack Snyder film, you kind of know what to expect. You have this you have this emphasis put on visualization. The Zack Snyder slow mo. And all that kind of stuff, like the violence, the slow motion, the kind of artsy feel that he puts in his movies. Snyder fans do eat that kind of stuff up. Well, that's an improvement on Part 1. Okay, so this reviewer actually believes it's an improvement, which is great to hear. But it doesn't make up for the emotional void. So it seems like it's lacking when it comes to the emotional kind of core of the movie. So, Kirsty Puckcho, I'm not sure how you say that, from Mashable. Still walking so delicately in the shadows of Star Wars Rebel Moon cannot shine. Well, that's not saying a lot these days because Star Wars has been pretty trashy over the last couple of years. So, you know, being overshadowed by, you know, being kind of in Star Wars' shadow is, you know, kind of a bad thing considering Star Wars isn't that good anymore. But, Rebel Moon cannot shine. So yeah, again, not a very good review. Nick Shager, I think that's how you say it, the Daily Beast. Set to Tom Holenborg's bombastic score, Gregorian chanting, and endless pew pew pews. Rebel Moon's Part 2, The Scargiver, roars and rampages, yet its drama can't match its aesthetic pomposity. Again, it's saying the same thing, so it's saying there's a lot of action, you know, there's a lot of action, pew pew pews, like talking about, you know, the space guns, and it rampages. There's a lot of action and a lot of this kind of stuff in the movie, but the kind of emotional element to the movie is kind of missing. This reviewer says the same thing. So from William Bibiani, yeah, the rap. Even if the superior version of Rebel Moon does come out eventually, that doesn't make these versions any better, and they're the only versions we have right now. Yeah, absolutely. It boggles my mind so much, right? So apparently, Zack Snyder's come out and said that there's these kind of extended R-rated versions of Rebel Moon Part 1 and Part 2. And they're both 3 hours long, and they're going to release these kind of better versions of the movie. Why would Netflix choose to put out a subpar version of their movies? I don't understand it. If you have a better version of these movies, why would you put out the worst version? Why would you put out a subpar version of them? Just put out the better version to start off with. It doesn't make any sense. Why would you do that? It just doesn't make sense. So the first installment garnered a 21% score. So with the sequel scoring even lower at 13%, as of the moment, like I said at the beginning, it could change, guys. It's not a promising start to Snyder's envisioned 6-movie series. Yeah, so Zack Snyder's come out and said that he's envisioning doing 6 movies in the Rebel Moon kind of, you know, series of movies, and that there's going to be spin-offs into, you know, like graphic novels and video games and stuff like this. He wants to build a whole kind of universe, but with these 2 first movies coming out and being lackluster scores like this, is the franchise going to continue? It's up to Netflix to kind of decide that, because at the end of the day, it's their property, so... Snyder has teased a director's cut for A Child of Fire and The Scargiver, both expected to be 3-hour epics. Will these versions offer substantial improvements or more of the same? We'll have the answer this summer. Again, I just go back to it. Why would you release a subpar version of these movies? If you have better versions of these movies, why not release the better version in the first place? Why are you going to get your audience to watch the crappy versions to then have to come back and then watch the versions again, but with extended, you know, why would you have to make them watch the movie again for a second time because it's a better version? Like, I don't understand it whatsoever. So, despite lukewarm reactions from fans and critics, the initial Rebel Moon film reportedly performed well in ratings on Netflix. If enough viewers support this sequel, Snyder might see his sci-fi saga extended as he desires. So, Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver, continues the epic saga of Korra and the surviving warriors as they prepare to sacrifice everything, fighting alongside the brave people of Velt to defend a once peaceful village, a newfound homeland for those who have lost their own in the fight against the Motherworld. On the eve of their battle, the warriors must face the truths of their own past, each revealing why they fight. As the full force of the realm bears down on the begoing rebellion, unbreakable bonds are forged, heroes emerge, and legends are made. Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver, starts streaming as of today on Netflix. Like I said, it released here around about 9:30 in the morning, so I haven't had a chance to see it yet. I'm going to watch it this evening. But based on these initial reactions and reviews coming out of Rotten Tomatoes, I'm really disappointed to hear this, because I was hoping that they could improve on this movie and kind of fix the mistakes that they did in Part 1. But it seems like more of the same mistakes, more of the same kind of problems and issues that people had with in Part 1. But I'm still going to watch it. I still thought the first movie was a fun, turn your brain off popcorn action flick, even with all the issues. But guys, jump into the comment section. Let me know what you think about this. After kind of reading these reviews with me, are you still excited to watch this movie? Are you going to check it out? Or do you really not care about Rebel Moon whatsoever? Whatever your thoughts are, pop them in the comment section down below, guys. I can't wait to see what you have to say. And thank you so much for watching and checking out my content. Be sure to subscribe if you do enjoy my content, guys. I really appreciate that. And I will see you in the next one.